In today's episode, we're going to be talking about why it is so important to spend some time doing nothing.
You're listening to the Wellness Simplified podcast. Simple wellness tips to help you improve your life without turning it upside down. With your host, award-winning fitness instructor, nutrition coach, and wellness expert, Suzi Fevens.
Yes, today's episode is all about doing nothing. Nothing is sort of in air quotes because there are some things that you can do so that you don't have to just be sitting in a chair looking at a blank wall. But more specifically, we're talking about the art of recharging. And that, my friends, is something that more people need to recognize, need to be a part of their daily and weekly schedule. We are so scheduled to the second that a lot of times we don't give ourselves any time to sit down and breathe. And I've talked about this in other episodes, including my episode with Caleb, where we talk about how nighttime routines are the new morning routines, and how one of my big recharge activities almost every day is taking a bath, because I can just sit there and sometimes I'll scroll through my phone, sometimes I'll watch Instagram stories, but sometimes I'll just lay there. And yeah, mindless scrolling isn't always the best option, but for me, it's one of the ways I relax. I get to catch up with my friends, see what's going on, but I set aside that time to do just that, to do quote unquote nothing. It's really, really important that as much as we have to recharge our batteries in our phones and in our computers and other devices, we have to recharge our own batteries as well. And furthermore, because you can recharge a battery in a phone or a computer while still working with it, we have to install those updates. So we all know those times when your computer or your phone, a little window pops up and says, hey, I've got updates to install. And you're like, I do not have time for this. And you always say, remind me later, remind me tonight, remind me tomorrow, whenever. And then eventually a point comes where your computer or phone is like, all right, sister, like, we cannot actually continue using this device until you do these updates. And then you have like 17 things that need to be updated, and it takes an hour or two. And then you're all miffed because you can't use your device, whatever it is, for all that time. And you have things to do and you're an important person. But really, had you installed those updates back when they first came up, they probably would have only taken a couple minutes. But since you kept putting it off, now you need to dedicate a whole lot more time to allowing them to happen. This is so relatable to us as people. If we dedicate little chunks of time throughout our day and our week to allow ourselves to recharge and install our own updates, if we want to liken it right back to that analogy, we only need a few minutes at a time. Ever notice that when it's your busiest and you just literally have no time to relax, that is when you come down with a sickness of some sort, that is when your back goes out, that is when something happens to throw you down and sit you in one spot and make you relax. It's not a coincidence. Your body gives you hints when you aren't taking care of it. And if you ignore those hints, it gets louder and louder and louder until you have no choice but to listen to it. That's why it's so critically important that we make self-care part of our daily routine. It is your chance to install your updates, to recharge your battery so that you are able to keep functioning properly. You don't want to have to install all those updates all at the same time and be out of the count for 2 days, a week, a month, depending on how long you've neglected yourself. If you just take those little tiny pockets of time, you're going to be able to save yourself so much time in the long run. And possibly even more important is the fact that if you are giving yourself those little bits of time, those self-care items that are finding their way onto your schedule on a regular basis, you're going to feel more relaxed all of the time. So you don't have to go through 3 months of being stressed out and totally frazzled before you give yourself a couple days off. This goes back to another meme that I see all the time, and that is, well, after I get blank done, things will calm down and I'll be able to relax. Guess what? Blank might finish, but then the next blank shows up. There's always something going on that's preventing you from being able to relax. And certainly there are seasons in life where things are busier than other times. And I just went through one myself at the beginning of September where I had a lot of things that had to get done. I was working very long hours, but I knew that it was only temporary. I knew it was only for a matter of about a week and a half, and just what had to get done as a result of holiday weekends and then hurricane weekends and things like that. So there are going to be those times where you just don't have the extra time in your day to give yourself a 20-minute bath. But if you are doing that most of the time, what you do most of the time matters a whole lot more than what you do once in a while. So if 80% of the time you are able to find those little things to provide self-care, to recharge, to install your internal updates, you're going to be so much further ahead when those times where you cannot stop, that other 20% of the time, when you cannot do those things, you're going to have a better resilience build up. You're going to have a better stress resilience. You're going to have a better stress response, which means you may still respond to stressors, but you will come back down to your normal state much faster. That's what stress resilience is all about. You're going to have good vagal tone. I'm getting a little bit into nervous system talk here, but the more you are able to take care of yourself the majority of the time, the better equipped your body is going to be to take care of yourself in those times when you aren't able to dedicate time to it. I hope that makes sense, that I don't expect you to always be able to find 5, 10, 20 minutes to set aside for yourself every single day. But if you're able to find even 5 minutes for yourself 5 times a week, that is going to put you so much further ahead than the person who doesn't give themselves even 5 minutes 5 times a day, and then you both find yourself in a similar stressful situation. Your stress response is going to be much better than theirs because you have built in some resiliency into your life. Your body knows how to recover from a stressful situation, and their body may not. They may be the person who gets laid out on the couch for a month with a thrown out back because they haven't been taking care of themselves. So it's essentially a matter of taking care of yourself now in shorter amounts of time, or being forced to take care of yourself later in longer amounts of time. So you may try to tell me you don't have 5 or 10 minutes a day that you can dedicate to yourself, but the opposite side is, do you have a week or a month or 3 months that you can just clear your schedule because you're so sick or injured that you can't do anything? Probably not. It's probably going to be a whole lot easier to find 30 minutes a week broken up over the course of a week to dedicate to just yourself and relaxing than it is to find a month or 2. This week's episode actually ties in really nicely with last week's episode, because if you don't know what else to do, you can stare out the window and do your deep breathing. It's going to do so much for you, and if you don't know what else to do, that is what you can do. Some other options, of course, I've already mentioned a bath, going for a walk, coloring, reading a book. That's another big self-care item for me, is reading a book. Watching a TV show that relaxes you. Y'all know some TV shows don't relax you, so I'm talking about relaxing ones. And some things like that, things that nourish your soul, that don't require a lot of physical energy. Walking requires some, but you can just stroll along. You don't need to go for a really heart-pumping walk. And just find your thing. Everybody's thing is different. Some people like to bake, and that is their way to relax. Find your thing and find some pockets of time to do it. It's going to feed your soul. It's going to recharge your battery. It's going to help you install those internal updates. And as a bonus, no problem ever gets solved while you sat at a computer and banged your head against the keyboard. Problems get solved when you step away. Problems get solved when you remove yourself from the situation and do something else. And many a problem in my life has been solved in the bathtub, on a walk, while cooking, while driving, while reading. Lots of problems get solved that way. I have never solved any by just sitting there and wishing it would come to me while I was working at my computer. So that's it for this week's episode. Find yourself some time to recharge this weekend, and let me know what your favorite recharge activity is. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next week.